Welcome back to the channel where we are building a video game from scratch using Love2d and Lua. Yesterday we got our NPCs to be able to have different walk modes. So right now they're in the walk in a square mode, but yesterday we added the ability to give them different options here. So like if we wanted our mage to not have the square option but wanted walk down instead, we can give them walk down and the other one square, and then we can kind of control it from there. So today I think I wanted to do a little bit more interactivity for our demo or for our channel trailer. Like I would like to be able to walk up to this sign and be able to hit enter on it and have a little dialogue box pop up saying that the ocean is to the left and the desert's to the right or something like that. So we need to come up with a way. It's a couple of different things, right? We need a place to store which dialogue goes in which X and Y of the tile, grid, whatever. We call this a current map. Like whatever we're looking at is the current map. That would be the next map. That's the current map. That's the current map now. It's the next map until it's done transitioning, then it's the current map. So it's like we need to be able to say, hey, at the current map of say 7.2 or whatever this is, yeah, 7.2, at map 7.2, at the third column and the 8th row or whatever it is, that there is a signpost object, and that object has a a class object that has reference to which type of dialogue it is, or maybe even we pass in the dialogue as a parameter for a given signpost. I don't exactly know because we have not figured out the dialogue system for NPCs, but what we do know is we need to be able to have some detection for what is directly in front of us, right? So we need to be able to know, hey, if we hit enter and there's no sign in front of us, it doesn't do anything. But if we were to hit enter and there's a sign in front of us, go ahead and pull up the dialogue box for the given sign that you're right in front of. So I think that's what we're going to do today. So let's get to it. I think the first thing we want to do is, we don't want to be checking collision detection on every single frame. We only want to be checking collision detection in front of our player once enter is pressed. So maybe we can do that. I don't know what makes the most sense, if it makes most sense in the play state or the map. Part of me thinks it makes sense in the play state. Let's see when we render our state machine stuff here, because we need to ultimately pause all of the update logic for the game if we are in the middle of a dialogue, essentially. So this scene view here, we might need to not update. Let's just see if we don't update our scene view, if it crashes first of all. Okay, so our scene view, it looks like if we do pause our scene view, that will be effectively what we're trying to pause. So we can do this where we can say, if not, I can call it dialogue pause, I guess, or pause in general. And I guess it does, if there's anything that makes sense to be like a global variable, it's probably like the pause state, right? So maybe we just have we have paused, and then we can have here in our constants, we can set a paused boolean to be equal to false. Now, we do need some key detection. That might make sense in... I guess it makes sense in our play state. So let's try it here. Like, let's say if love.keyboard dot was pressed, and then we can say return or enter. I don't remember the difference, but on Mac and PC, return and enter are the corresponding ones, I'm pretty sure. So if return was pressed or love.keyboard was pressed, enter, then we would want to go ahead, and this is where we could do... I think we could do something like the ternary operator here. I always screw this up, but let's see. We can say we set paused equal to the result of paused being checked against. Now we want to flip it, so we need if it is true, then we want to swap it to false, and if it is not true, then we want to swap it to true. I think that is how you do it. It looks weird, right? Paused gets paused equals true and false or true. It looks weird, but essentially, if you ignore, this is just the assignment for what we're saving. So this is the evaluation. And we're saying if paused is equal to true, then it'll result in this value. Paused will get set to, oh, and maybe it's just this. No. I don't know. Let's see. It should not be paused from the get-go. Oh my gosh. So the initial pause worked, but since it was paused... Well, I don't know. I guess if we went to render what paused was here... I'm surprised the pause worked, but the unpaused didn't. Okay, so it looks like paused is getting set to true, but not back to false. So that we might have screwed up the ternary. I'm going to look up... I always screw this up. Okay, it looks like you can literally do... It looks like we don't need the equals. We just assign it. So I think we can go here. Okay, I think we can get rid of this. Let's try it. So if we're walking around, they're walking, and then if we want to pause it, paused, and then if we hit it again, it is still paused. Okay, true and false are true. True and pause gets true. Man. You know I've done this. I'm gonna pull up. I know I've done this. I just don't remember where. I think it was in our template. Let's see. I thought it was to swap in our title state here. This is my example of, I've got it. Highlight gets highlighted and 1 and 2 or 1. Jesus. Well, that should be it. Like, I guess that's what I initially tried, right? So it'd be paused gets paused equal to the value and now we know we are still, man, let's try. Why does that one work? Why does that one work? What did we screw up? Well, it works. Paused gets, and then it asks if it's false, and if it is false, it's true, and if it is not false, it's false. So why does changing this to true and this to false and this to true, why does this not do the same thing? Yeah, it doesn't do the same thing. I don't know. But we do have a paused that we can pause. So now once the once we click on the dialogue, we would trigger this paused so that nothing gets updated, right? Now, I think this should include any weather system or anything on the game. So I'm kind of curious if we were to go into our map here and turn on our snow system. Okay, so we've got snow, and let's see if the pause works for it. We walk up to a sign and hit enter, and it pauses while we read the sign, then resumes. Okay, cool. So it looks like that's working. We can get rid of this debug here for our place state for our paused. Okay, so I think the next step is now, instead of, oh, and what's tricky is we don't want to set paused in the play state. What we do want to do is set paused in our, we do want to check for paused in our play state so we can only update if we're not paused, but we need to trigger our pause in our map or in our scene, because in order, actually, yeah, that becomes impossible, because if we are paused and if we hit enter, we aren't updating the map, so we can't register that input, so we kind of have to be there. So I guess the thing is, let's look at the order of which we hit enter. And we set this. So we set this before our update. See, this is tricky. I think we might want to do this after we update our scene because... Oh, no. That doesn't work either. So the problem we're running into here is that we can hit enter and it'll pause, no problem. But we need to be able to update certain things like the dialog box for the post and everything. So we'd have to be able to update. That might be in the play state here because it exists outside of the scene. Because the scene needs to be paused if it's paused, but the dialogue can resume outside of the scene. So we might have to pull that out into the play state here. But then if we... See, because the thing is, we don't want to pause it here because we need to be able to check for... It's tough because we need to check the current scene, right? We need to check our player within our scene against all the posts in our current map. Once enter is pressed, we need to check and see whether or not there is a valid post in front of us, and if there is, then we would trigger this paused. So I think it does make sense to keep it in the play state. I think it does make sense, but let's get testing for... We need to be able to check only what's right in front of us against any other spot that is potentially a signpost. So we should try to just work on rendering something to check, like a sort of dialogue text box, collision box. A collision box for our dialogue text triggering. And if we can get that working in front of our character, then we can start to implement some other stuff. So let's go into the map, and actually it kind of makes sense to put it with the player because it's only in regards to the player. I don't know if that makes sense, but let's maybe call it, let's maybe set a... What up, Magnetonics? I think we're gonna set a sort of bounding box for the dialogue triggers and kind of tether it to the player because it needs to be tethered to the player here. So I'm gonna call it dialogue. See, and we would need both an X, a Y, and a width and a height for all of this dialogue box stuff. So let's just try to give us some of that. And we would need a width and a height. Now for right now, I'm just going to give it a tile size, width, and height. And we're just going to copy... I think I want it to be just above our player for now. Just above our player, right? So we can say it's going to get our X. We would need to update this though. That's okay. We would let's do it here. We'll do a tile size above us, and actually that's to the left of us. So actually we want the same X, but we want a Y of just above us. So now, as long as we update this stuff, in our update, after our X and Y positions get updated, which is after a whole bunch of stuff, after this entity update, we're going to update our dialog box X of our player to be our current player's X, and then dialog Y. And then let's go ahead and not only render the entity, but we want to do a love.graphics draw, and it's actually a rectangle that takes in a fill type, and then it's the x, y, width, and height, which we have in our player. So self dot dialog box x. Now this will be the collision box for detecting whether or not to trigger a dialogue. So this will be what we're checking to see if, hey, are we talking to an NPC right now, or are we talking to a signpost? Okay. And then we will do a set color to be red. Okay, let's see. Sweet. So we've got this little dialog box. So if you imagine, if we are facing up, that's something where the dialog box would be. So then we have this collision box, and now if this box is colliding with the signpost and we hit enter, it'll pause and hopefully trigger this on-screen dialogue that says, you know, river to the left or desert down or whatever. But we need to move this rectangle based on which direction we're facing. So we want to check which direction we are and set the x and y width and height according to which direction we are. So we're going to say what? This entity, I'm kind of curious what this dot entity. This is okay. So this dot notation is a little different than the fields that we're assigning. It's like how I guess this is how like inheritance is kind of working in Lua. So the dot init. Well, yeah. Dot init, run it. And then dot update, run it. Okay. So our entity is updating, and it's updating ourself. So we should be able to ask if self.direction is equal to up, then go ahead and do this stuff. So this should only update that dialog box if we're facing up. Let's see if that's the case, and we can get... So look, it's over there because we're not facing up, but as soon as we face up, it gets updated. So that looks correct for facing up at least. Okay, so we should be able to do that. So let's say we've got to do the other cases, right? So else if our direction, let's just do down now. If down, we want the dialog box to be beneath us instead of on top of us. So let's make our X the same, but the Y to be a plus tile size. And then if our direction is left, then we want to put it to the left of us, which means the X would be shifted by the tile size and the Y would be equal. So we would say X minus a tile size, and tile size is just the 16 by 16. All the tiles are the same size. Our game is kind of old school in that way, where we're like legitimately rendering it by sprites, one sprite at a time, one row at a time, one scene at a time, and then we can add else if self.direction is equal to right. Then go ahead and we're going to set our y to be positively modified, our x to be positively modified by our tile size. So now let's see our little rectangle boy here. Sweet. So the idea is, like, when we hit enter, if that box is colliding with either an NPC or a whatever signpost, that we would then trigger the appropriate action. Now, there's like a couple more things to think about, because like if an NPC is walking away from us and we hit enter, ideally the NPC would face us before they start talking and before the thing pauses. So where we do this pause, we might have to wait to trigger the pause until we modify the corresponding colliding thing. Now, and also, like, this shouldn't trigger a talk, right? It's too far away for that to be considered talking. So let's cut our size in half. So if we're facing up, we want our height to be half the size it currently is. If we're facing down, we want it to be half the size it currently is. If we're facing left or right, we want the width to be half the size it currently is. And then that will give us at least a little bit more accurate of a little box here. So now we've got to be, oh, that's wrong. Oh, okay, yeah, we got to shift. Okay, so down and right is fine. Up and left is wrong. Up and left. It cuts this by... Yeah, so I think we need to modify. Our height is shorter, but we need it to be touching us. So we need to only subtract half of the white, half of the height. So it's right above us, right? And then on the left, we need to do the same. Left, we're going to set our X to be half of that tile size. Okay, so now that's a little more accurate of a dialogue detector box thing. So I think we could afford to shrink it a bit more. Because look, if this is triggered, right, like that probably shouldn't trigger the sign to read the sign because you're not in front of it. So maybe we see that might be different for signposts. I don't know, because like, should you be able to read a signpost if you come in from the top like that? Actually, yeah, you probably should. So maybe we'll just shrink the width and height a bit. Do we have a constant for like a little buffer of 3 or 4 pixels? We've got off-screen top buffer. Yeah, maybe. I want to call it something like dialogue box shrink or something. Dialogue. That is just the worst name, but let's go with it. So what I want to do is I want to shrink the width of the box by this dialog trigger shrink, which means I also want to shift the X positively to be half of that shrink. Let's see, because we want it to be centered still, right? So yeah, that's looking right. And it's looking a little more, accurate, because it's like our player doesn't go to 16 wide on all aspects. So it's like this right here shouldn't trigger a read of the sign, right? It's just not, he's just not close enough to it. So we can either shrink the height of the box here or shrink the width. And that's what we're trying to with this dialog shrink. So if it's down, we want our width to be a dialog shrink smaller, and the X to be shifted by half of this trigger shrink. That's just so weird. Okay, so see, like a smaller box of this trigger shrink. Oh, his little starfish walk. See, look at this. Why is the box... Oh, that was weird. Why is the box moving up and down? That's what I really don't get. Because our Y position isn't moving. The only thing that's changing is the state. Because if we're in a walk, it's fine, but if we're in an idle, it's shifted. Why? Okay, why did that happen, first of all? That is so weird to me. I still don't know why it's doing that. What is going on there? Because if I let go right when he's on... Oh gosh, that is so bad. Why is that doing that? That looks so bad. Yeah, it shouldn't be tweaking out like that. It does it for every direction. Okay, well, if we're facing left, we want to shrink the height by this dialog shrink, which means, oh lordy, dialog trigger shrink, and then we would offset our Y position by half of this shrink value. And then if we're facing right, we want similarly our dialog trigger shrink, and then we want our X to be modified by also this, oh no, the Y to be modified by this dialog trigger shrink. Let's see. That is wrong. That is wrong. Okay, so it looks like we need to subtract it. No. If we're facing right, we want our Y to be smaller. That's not quite... Actually, yeah, that is looking right. I don't get why this is the... We need to shift up. So the thing is, we shrink... Oh, God. We need to shrink the height. If we're facing left to right, we shrink the height of this box, which means we need to draw it plus the dialogue trigger shrink, because it's drawn from the top left being 0, 0. So we do have to add this value instead of subtract it. But now we should have a little... Okay. Okay, we've got this little thing. Now, I want it to be... See how there's a 1 pixel gap in between our nose and the box? I just want to account for that. So let's move, if we're left or right, let's just minus a 1 pixel. This is, I want to say that the 1 pixel, we should probably make a constant for that, but let's see if, now it's touching our nose. Oh, yeah, and then if we're facing left, we want to be plus a pixel. So it should be touching our nose. Cool. Okay. Sweet. I don't get why it does this. Why does it scoot? I don't get why it scoots when we're holding it up against a wall or something. We must be rendering it. We're rendering it. I don't get why it scoots. Because our player isn't scooting, and it's rendering based on our player's location, so why is it scooting there? And why did that happen? Why does that happen? I should not be able to walk through the fence like that. Of course, I can't recreate it either, but... Okay. Well, good thing no one was watching the stream, because we just crashed. Okay. This is all good. The only weird thing is that... if we have multiple inputs, it doesn't do the latest input. I guess it's not so bad. It's just that if we... Maybe not. Hey, welcome in again, Norix. How's it going? We're trying to get the little, we've got this little box for detection for like a signpost, so that now, hopefully, if that red box is touching a signpost and you hit enter, it'll pause the game and then show you the contents of that signpost. So now that we've got the box there, you know, pressing enter anywhere shouldn't pause, but it should only pause if there's a signpost there and then show you what's on the screen, so that's going to be tough, but we can figure it out. So we added this dialogue box to our character, and right now we're just rendering it so we can see it. But ideally, all we would be doing is, if enter is pressed, we'd go into this player and check these parameters against the signpost parameters for collision. And then if there is a collision, then it would trigger the text that's in that signpost. So I think we need a class for this, because we need to be able to store a certain text and a certain X and Y position for any given signpost, and then be able to render that. So I want it to be kind of old school, right? Where it might say, you know, it's dangerous to go alone, take this, and every letter is kind of drawn on one at a time. And then if you hit enter or whatever, it'll load all the text all at once, and then if you hit enter again, it'll advance the text or clear it if that's the last page. So the dialogue system is gonna be tricky for me. I've never done anything like that, but we will try. So I think what I want to do first is give us a new class, and it'll be signpost. So we're going to say signpost gets a class instantiation. And then we're going to give ourselves a couple of functions for the signpost, including an init function, an update function, and a render function. Now in the init, we know we need an X, we know we need a Y, we probably need a width and a height because we need to do AABB collision on this thing. And then we also need a text. Now it could be like, we could say that there is a self.text, and like, let's say that we pass in as parameters the X, the Y, the width, and the height. We might be able to hard code in the height for this. Yeah, actually, let's hard code in the width and the height, but then we'll require text as a string here. And we're assigning text to be our self-text. And the height here will be hard-coded at, let's just do tile size for now. We'll probably have to shrink it just a bit. And then we'll say the parameter X gets assigned to our signposts X. And our parameter Y gets assigned over there to our signposts Y. Okay. So we need to be able to hold instances of this signpost on multiple different maps. So map 1.1 might have one signpost, map 2.2 or 1.2 might only have no signposts. So we need a way to go not only... Yeah, we need a way to basically store each instantiation into the map in our map declarations, right? So let's head over there to our map declarations, and we'll call we already do a bunch of stuff here. Like, every map gets a bunch of things, and one of the things it needs to get is a list of all of the signposts. And we're going to say every map gets its own signposts field, and that every one of those signposts starts out as an empty table. So the idea here is that we would insert all the signposts that we have for the current map, and then we would once enter is pressed, we check for collision with any of the signposts, because each of these objects has an XY width and a height, so we should be able to do some collision detection for the signposts using this method. So I guess we would have to give us an actual signpost, and we don't have that as far as the game's concerned until we go here into dependencies. And right here we need to say go ahead and require our signposts. Now that should be in source. Let's double check. We're in source. Signpost.lua. Okay. So let's do a love.graphics print. This is a signpost. Okay, so if we go to our map declarations, after we would go and enter all of our entities, let's say on this 7.2, we would say, okay, well, map 7.2 dot signposts would get now if we only need one, we can just declare one. No, we have to do what we have to do is do a table dot insert, and we give it the list, which is the signposts, and then the value, which would be the actual signpost instantiation. Now this thing takes in 3 parameters, an x and a y, and a width and a height. We'll just put it at 0, 0, or it's an x, a y, and then a text, right? So actually, let's give it a text here. Text test. And then in our signpost, I don't think it likes this. Signpost. We have an S here, it's just signpost. And now it still looks like it doesn't like it. Oh, that's because we didn't close this. Okay. So we're going into the signposts table that we just made for each of our maps, but we're going into the specific one on the page that we spawn at, and we're inserting an object of signpost into that dot signposts. Now we should render the signpost based on the text given. So instead of saying this, we want to say to string our self.text, which should be whatever we pass in, which is test text or text test. And then what we can do is then go into, when we go in our map, after we do our entity updates and stuff, we can just say, go ahead and render, or yeah, in our render, after we render our NPCs, it'd probably be after the snow system even, we would say, let's go ahead and go into the map, the global map, at whatever our current, what is it, row and column? row and column, whatever our current row and column dot signposts is. So it's row column dot signposts. So we should be able to say row column. How come these are white? We're in the map. Oh, self.row, self.column. Okay. Okay, we're going into our current map dot signposts. And right now we know we just have one, so I'm just going to say take that first signpost object and go ahead and render it. Text. Nice. Okay, so let's change this so that it works for more than one signpost, right? Where we can say for the amount of, and we can say we want to say for the number of signposts there are, do a and I guess we have to say for key v in pairs to cycle through the table, and the pairs is this signpost. Do a signposts at index key, render it. Should be the same output, but now, oh god. That argument 1 to pairs, in pairs, key value in pairs, signposts, render, that argument 1 to pairs, table expected. Okay. Text test. Gosh, that's so bad. Okay. So now we have a signpost. It only has an X and a Y, and that'll be used for the collision detection, but it also has a text of which to render. So we'd have to set up collision detection now for it. So my current idea, all we'll do is we'll make the signposts here. Instead of just rendering the text, what we want to render is also where this post is, so that we can do some collision detection. So we don't need to see it, but it would be nice to see that it's in the correct spot, so that we aren't banging our heads for the collision detection. So love.graphics set color, and we're going to set it to green. So RGB alpha, set it to green, and then what we're going to do is render a rectangle with a fill type. And the X, you know it is our own X. Y is our own Y. Width is our own width. Very easy. And height is our own height. So one thing that is a little tricky for something like this is that there's probably not going to be two signposts that are the exact same text. So one thing we're doing for our collidable map objects is we're checking to see if it's a certain tile ID, and if any of those tiles are a certain tile ID, then we're putting them into the collidable map objects table. Now we can't quite manually put, or we can't quite automate putting in the X and a Y of a signpost. in the sense that we have to give it unique text. So I guess there is a way to give it a unique, or to automate the X and Y, but we still have to manually put the text in there. So I don't know. Part of me thinks we just, they're going to be on a grid system anyway. So maybe we just give it the correct grid system and then give it the custom text. So let's just see if this, we're already rendering the signpost, so it should be green now. Now our X and Y is set to 0, 0 when it should be set to whatever this signpost is. So this first signpost here is on the third column, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 3, 6. So we'll go to our map declarations here, and we'll go, our X is going to be 3, right? So 3 times our tile size. This is what is kind of nasty, right? It would be nice if our signpost got inserted automatically based on the tile ID, because we could say, the signpost is a tile ID. As long as we put it on the same layer, we can say, okay, as you're going through, if the text ID is of type signpost, go ahead and put that X value and Y value into a signpost instantiation into our signpost table. We definitely could do that. We could do that. Yeah, maybe that's a nice if we want to fix later. But for now, we can say 3, 6 on our tile size, and let's say hello. Okay, we messed up. It should be 2, 5. I forgot the one indexness of it. Okay, so this should be the first signpost on the left there. Okay, so now the whole thing is, now we don't want to render this text until we've hit enter and this red box is colliding with this green box. And that'll be acting as if we're reading the sign, right? So, and it pauses the time. That's why we put the snow on there, so you could see the time pause. So we need to only pause if this collision comes back true. What's nice is we can do some basic AABB collision here. It's not too hard. But I think what's a little trickier is managing the state for the pausing and the, well, I don't know. Let's see. Okay. So when would we check this collision? We would check this collision only upon enter being pressed, and we would only swap to paused if upon enter being pressed there is a collision between the player's dialog box and any signpost of the current map. So I think wherever we're doing the paused is where we need this, which is in the play state. So right here, we only want to pause if it's if collides with a signpost or whatever, or NPC, but right now we're just doing the signpost. So if we are, enter is pressed, and then enter's pressed, now we need to cycle through all of the signposts we have in the map and compare it to our players dialogue red box. So our dialogues, what's a little confusing here is like we need to go to our scene view's current map. Our scene view holds the current map, and that should have the field of our signposts. So we need to check. We need to loop through every one of these signposts because there could be more than one, right? So let's do a loop through the table in pairs. Of signposts. So for every signpost, we're going to do something. And the something we're going to do is check collision. Now, we don't have a traditional AABB collision with the play state, but if we look in our player, I believe we should have a standard collide function. We have a collide on a pit. Wow, really? We don't have a collide on our player? I think it's part of our entity class. Now, player gets entity. So let's see in our entity, we have a, do we have just a collide? Collides with a target. Okay, so since our player is of type entity, we should be able to run the player collides and pass in the target of the signpost, which has an X, a Y, and a width and a height. So let's try to do that. Right here. We're going to cycle through all our signposts, and we want to run. So our player, where is our player in reference to our scene view? It is, okay, it is self.player. Yeah, self.player. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna go to our... Man, where were we? Okay, right there. Signposts. We're going to run the collides function on our player. And we're going to pass it in that target. And that target is the signpost at every index. Every one of our signposts that we're looping through. So we're going to say signposts at index key. And this should return true if it is true. So like if we'll say if we collide with it, then that's when we want to pause. Then once we're paused, if we press it again, this should still be colliding because we stopped updating. Then it should do the ternary and flush it, ideally, but let's see. So we hit enter and we crash because of bad argument 1. Table expected got nil. So scene view dot, I could sworn we've got a, oh, I think we have to go, I think we have to go into our global table at our scene view row. Okay, I think once we do that, it might work. No. Shit. Map, scene view row. Let's just try to hard code in 7.2 and see. So the current map doesn't have access to the global map variable, which has our signposts. So I think unless we kind of save our signposts into the current map, I don't think we'll be able to do what we're trying to do. But if we hard code it like this with a 7.2, okay, there we go. So pressing enter does not pause the game, but if we walk to the signpost and hit enter, it does. So look, I'm spamming enter. And only if we're colliding with that thing do we pause it. So the idea here too is to say, in our signposts class, we're gonna say, you know what? We're gonna render the text not at 0, 0, but we're gonna render a little white rectangle to kind of put the text over, right? So like we can say love.graphics set color, and we want to set it, I want to set it to like an off-white or a gray. So maybe gray would be 200 all around. And then we want to render a rectangle that is type fill. And it is an X and a Y width and a height. Now the X would be 0 because it's the left side of the screen. The Y would be however. And it's tough because we've got a HUD down there. So like, let's say we want it 50 pixels tall, but minus the HUD, whatever the, gosh, I don't even know how we were doing that again. Virtual height minus, it's called like height, what is it called? Screen height limit. Let's see what happens if we try to do it at a screen height limit. And the width is gonna be the virtual width. And the height is gonna be, I don't know, let's just put 20. And then we're gonna fill the rectangle with the green, and then we're gonna render white text over the gray. And for now, we'll put it basically at the same location so that we can just kind of start to see what the text box might look like. Graphic. We need graphics here. Okay, so there's a signpost. We hit enter. I don't see the render for the screen height limit because it's off screen. So we would minus it by however tall we want it. So like, let's say we want it 50 tall, then we give it a height of 50. Now we should see something sweet, but we only want to see this. We only want to render this if we're paused, actually. So would we do that here? No. I think we would do this in the play state when we do the render. Where are we doing the render for the signposts? Yeah, where are we doing the render for the signposts in the map? Right here. Okay, so we only want to render these bad boys if we're paused. Okay, let's see. Sweet. Now this would need to go over the player, right? So that we can see it. I'm not seeing the text though. Signpost. Let's do black text. And we need to shift our text up by the same amount. So we'll be able to see the text now. Okay, hello. That's weird. The collision detection isn't working from up here. It works down here for some reason. Okay, I'm not sure why it doesn't work on any other side other than facing up. I guess it would come down to... Let's try to do the render. Let's only do this if paused. I don't know if this makes sense, but we'll try if we're paused to then render the stuff here in the signpost, because I still want to be able to see the collision detection for the signpost whether or not we're paused. So I have to kind of pull it out. So now we should see the green. Now we still don't trigger the collision unless we're facing up, which is a little strange to me. Oh, because we're... Okay, I know why. We need to go... to where we're doing the collision, which is in our play state. And we don't pass it in. Oh, see, this is a little jacked up, because when we do the collision, we're just checking if the player itself collides with the signpost. Now, we can't collide with an uncollidable object unless we're beneath it, because we do this fake kind of where we can walk in front of objects on the bottom. So like, we can't collide with this tree because it's a collidable map object, but we can technically collide with it by walking in front of it. Now we shrunk our collision so that it gives us this little effect like we can walk in front of a tree. But the game doesn't know that because we aren't doing collision with the box, the red box. We're actually doing collision with our body itself. So if we're even over here, it should trigger the hello. If we're like right here, it triggers hello still. See how the box isn't colliding with it? I used to think it was facing up, but it's really just if our player is colliding with it. Which... yeah. Okay. So we need to do not the collide function with player. We need like a... yeah, I think we need... I don't know, it's a little tricky. Because the fields we're trying to run collision on aren't called X, Y, width, and height. They're called dialog box, whatever the heck we called it. Where is our player? This, dialog box X, width, and height. Okay, so I think what we need to do is just write a generic global collision detection that takes in 4 values or 8 values. Either an object... yeah, okay. Yeah, so the reason it's not working is because our collision functions is part of our entity class, which our player has, but it doesn't check the dialog box. So maybe we go into our entity and we give a specific collision function just for the dialog box, and we run it on the player. I think that's probably the easiest way to do it. So let's go to our entity class, and we'll go to where our collides function is. And it is right here. But right here we want to say dialog collides, or something like that. And we want to give it a target the same, but any self X width, this is where we change it to our player's unique stuff. So this is the stuff that we need. So self X becomes dialog box X. And we can do this a little better. Okay. We can search and replace any self X with self dialog box X. And then we can substitute any self dot width with self dialog box width. And then we can substitute every self dot height with self dot dialog box height. And last, the Y with dialog box Y. Okay, now we just need to run this function and not our collides function, dialog collides. So let's go to our play state, and instead of running collides, we will run dialog collides. So I'm hitting enter, and dialog, oh, I just spelled it wrong. Dialog. Dialog. Okay. Dialog. Sweet. Let's see it. I'm spamming enter. Nice. Now we can do it from up here. So we can read the sign up here. As long as the red and green box are colliding. Now there was like a bit of... Oh, we did shift it a little bit. We probably... Let's not shift it. So that it's just true. Well, no. Why would it be doing that? You know, I was thinking about that. I'm not sure. I can see in some aspects it makes sense for it to be read from the back, but like in terms of just so you don't have to walk all the way around just to read it or whatever, at least side to side, right? Like, I mean, I guess the pixel art kind of makes it look like you shouldn't be able to read it from the top, huh? We can change that. So I guess that'll fix this bug if we just don't allow to trigger here. So we can say, you know, not only do we have to be colliding with the signpost, but we have to also be, our player has to be not down. Because if our player is facing down, the signpost is only facing down, so you'd have to be not facing down in order to read it, if that makes sense. So we can say if not self player dot direction equal it down, then go ahead and do that pause stuff. So let's see. I'm going to hit enter, and we cannot read it from the top. Let's see if we can read it from the side. We cannot, and we can't read it, period. So and not self dot player. We should have a dot direction for our player. Yeah. It's actually not in there. Okay, I guess it's part of our entity. Yeah. It's part of our entity. I don't get why this is... Let's try it here. If not self dot player dot direction if it's not down, yeah, if it's any direction other than down, go ahead and pause it. That is not working. See, so wherever we're doing this dot direction debug print on pressing 5 should have the field we're looking for. It's self-player direction in the play state, yeah. That's exactly what we try to do, self-player direction. Okay, well... Oh, we might have to check, well, if we collide with it. Okay. Then we pause. Let's test and make sure this works. Yeah. Okay, and then... It was self-player direction, yeah. Let's see... So the last input is controls, yeah, which direction the person is, or the player is facing, and then the is it the direction on the collision box side? No, it should be just to the player. So like I'm gonna test if we collide and if the player's dot direction is equal to down. Let's try this. So this should only work if we're facing down, but it seems to not be wanting to work. That's working if we're facing down only. So we need the opposite of that, which I thought would be if not direction down. So it doesn't work there, and it doesn't work anywhere. What the... If not... If... Basically, if the direction is not equal to down, then we want to do this, yeah. It's weird that it works with only down. We just want it different. Direction down, left, up, right. Okay. I mean, we can try. I don't like if direction is left, or I don't like this. Like I would have liked if we could have just said if not down. So if we're right or up. Let's see if this works. I don't know why just asking not down wouldn't work, but let's see here. If we're down, we can't read it. But if we're on the side, we can read it. Sweet. So now let's get... We've got a couple things. We need to make sure that the text is rendering on top of the player. So we need to render, when we go to render our signposts, we need to render it after the player, which... Where do we even render it? Signposts. Do we do it? Oh, see, look. Okay. See, we don't want to do it here in the map because the player exists outside of the map. So we need to do it after the player is rendered here in the play state or the scene. Maybe we do it in the scene. Let's see. Let's try putting it here in the scene. And does the scene have access to the current map? We have a map row and map column, so we'll call it that. I should have kept those things the same, but self.row gets self.map.row. And then self.column gets self.map column. Okay. Now it should be over. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. Yeah, you're right, because not... Yeah, not... Yeah, let's try that. I think that's a good idea. Let's see. Cool. So text rendering above our player now. We can't read it from there. Let's try the not equal to. Yeah. Instead of not, which does do booleans, but not equality. So I think you might be right on that. So let's go... we need to go to our signposts. Now, hopefully instead of that junk, hopefully we can say if player dot direction, it's self.player dot player dot direction does not equal down, then pause. Oopsie. Now in Lua, not equals is this tilde equals, which is just, you know, slightly weird, but let's see. Hey, Prosto, what's up? Oh my gosh, yes. That works. Okay. So now what we have to do, we can turn off the rendering for both the... Uh-oh. We got stuck here. Okay, let's turn off the rendering for the squares here. So we'll go into our signpost and we'll take our green color out for now. And then we will... Oh, what, the star? What's up, Brosto? Yeah, I think I want to go and we'll take out the player the player dialog box render. It's nice to have it on there for debugging stuff, but it's looking pretty good. And actually, we might want to do... The other thing we got to do is get our other signpost. Nice. Good catch, Posto. We've got... Yeah, so I'm going to go back to our signposts. I'm going to turn on the green again so that we can come into our map declarations, and we need to be able to give ourselves the second signpost. So if we look at the location, the second signpost is, let's see, 1, 2. Let me just see if we do a signpost at 1, 1. I'm just curious what it does. Oh, okay. No, I know what it does. So 0, 0 will be the first one, and then we need to offset it by 1 there. So this will be post 2, and then 0, 0 will be the top left, but we need it to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 4. It's going pretty good, Prosto. I mean, I'm honestly getting a little worried about how the overall dialogue system is gonna be made. Oh, nice. You can do your block bench thing? That's awesome, dude. Good job on that. Cool. So now we have post 2 over here. So we have 2 different signposts. Oh, gosh. And then we're inserting... Okay. We have to insert... We're overriding the signpost instead of... I don't know why it's overriding it. Oh, it's got to be under the... What? Render? Signpost... Oh, no. Text? Okay. We pull the text. We render the text. The location in the map. I'm not sure what you mean. The location... Like we insert it, like the map is the object that holds all the signposts, and we're doing a table.insert, which should give us 2 signposts. Now we are correctly detecting the... collision for the signpost, but it's having the wrong text. Let's go look at when we're rendering here. Yeah, I think we might want to take the pause out of here, but we might need to do... What is it? Signposts. Ooh, I thought we did in our... Was it in the map? Signposts. We render each pair of signposts. Oh, this is where it's going wrong. Because we're rendering every signpost regardless if we collide with it. We only want to render this if we collide with the signpost. Like, we only want to render... Because what this is doing is rendering the first signpost and then the second signpost on top of it, which is why it's always saying post 2. So we need to render not all of the signposts, but the signposts that we interacted with. Now this is in the scene. Yeah, we don't want to render all the signposts. We want to render if we've collided with it. So we can run this, and what sucks is we might have to pull this into our play state instead of our scene. Because this is where we have access to the dialogue collides. So this is getting messy, but oh god. Yeah, this is getting messy. Yeah, I don't like PlayState being this bogged down. It's got too much junk in it. We need to refactor our loot music stuff out of the PlayState for sure. But we'll try putting right here. Now, do we have a reference to the current map we're at in the PlayState? I think we don't. That makes things tricky. Yeah. Now, yeah, right now, shoot. We do need a way. I think our scene, we might need to move all this stuff. Okay. Okay, I think we need to move all of this. Oh gosh, no, we can't. The paused logic has to be in the play state here because we need to be able to unpause it, and we can't unpause it if we're not updating our scene. And pause is what controls whether or not we're updating our scene. So that's one tricky part. So how would we render? I mean, I guess we could just have a little variable that says whatever post we collide with, save that index, and then go ahead and render only the index of the sign that is. I don't know. Oh, did we screw this up? We just deleted some code here. If we go back to there we go. Okay. So we only want to render so it's almost like this is really strange to me. And it's, you know, it's my fault because of the way I orchestrated all the game, but there's a bunch of data like the map column that isn't being shared with the play state. So either we refactor our play state to also include the current map row and map column, which I'm not exactly sure. You can print some identifier to know which one you are talking to rule out that you're taking the same one twice. That's essentially what I'm thinking we need to do. It's just that instead of rendering all the signposts, we only render the signpost that's being collided. So maybe what we can do is have a separate table of even that is like too much. Because the thing is, I don't want to render a signpost if we're not hitting enter on it, right? Or like, yeah. So let's try this. Let's go where we trigger the collision for the signpost, which is in our play state. And right here, if we're going to be paused, what we want to do before we pause, it may happen that the collider does not know which one it is. It only knows that it did collide. It does know which signpost collides by this K value here. So I think that's what I want to do is like I think what I want to do is take the value of the actual signpost that is collided and table.insert it into a new table for our global map, which we still need to figure out how we cannot hard code this for this scene. We have to figure that out anyway. But basically, if we have if we collide with a signpost and we're facing direction, we want to insert into the table, into signpost collided table, the actual signpost, and then when we render, we'll only render the signposts that we collided with, and then we will clear out that signpost collided. Now we do have to refactor. We have to be able to pull in the current map and row from our game instead of just the hard-codedness of 7.2, but for right now we'll just test it and say collided is gonna get flushed to empty, and we only insert the value of the signpost that we did in fact dialogue collide with. So let's go to our map declarations and make sure we have a signpost collided. Everything I do, I just feel like I'm just duct taping everything together, you know? But, you know, I'll get better with practice. Everything I feel like is like duct taped together. Signpost collided. Okay, so we have that table. We're inserting into that table upon the collision with here signpost collided, and then we are in our map. Instead of rendering, actually it's in our scene. Instead of rendering, I think what I want to do is render. I only want to render the signpost. I only want to render, gosh, what is it? If there is a value inside of this table, signpost collided. If there's a value in there, then we want to go ahead and render it. And we render it at signpost collided index 1. We render the only one that's in there because there should only be one. Signpost collided. Cool. Let's see. All right. Scene 297. Map, self-time map row, signpost collided. You don't like it. Oh, if it's it's because it's shit. Index a nil value. It's because it's empty. But I thought we're only... okay. I don't like this. Oh, we want to check if this is... if we have one value in there, then go ahead and render the one value. Okay, we aren't rendering the signpost 1, but we are rendering signpost 2, but only the first time. What? Yeah. Okay. Signpost collided. If we dialogue collide with a signpost, then we're going to go ahead, check our direction, and insert it into a signpost collided, and then... Okay. Maybe we just... right. I don't know what to try. Because, like, it's pausing it, so it's still knowing that there's a signpost there. It's just not rendering it. So our collision here, you know, we're not inserting the right value. Even though we're saying collide with that given signpost. Okay, I mean, I'm kind of curious. I never understood what the difference was if we were to do, instead of the value, but to put in the table at the index key. Okay, still no. I don't know. I don't know what to try. I thought this would work. We could try printing out signposts collided. I mean, I think something's going wrong here. Okay. Something is going wrong there. So the thing is, okay, so we need to be able to clear, because the green that's right here is from our signpost. It's right here. But yeah, see, because we don't want to, right here, when we load the game, there's nothing green because there's no signpost collided. So maybe upon unpausing, we just flush this. So maybe instead of doing this else, maybe we just say if not paused, we flush the table. But we would want this. Let's do it here where we can say it would be here. We could say if. Oh yeah, I don't know how to do it. Yeah, we just want to flush this table if we are paused. Oh no, once we become unpaused. So once we hit this, we could say if at this point we are not paused, that's when we would want to flush this table. Okay, hello? Post 2, great. Now, I don't get why post 2... Oh no, we're screwed up. Why is post 2... Oh, we're not... Okay, so I think all that's left to do now is to put our green off, and then we should have these two different posts. There's hello and post 2, and it pauses time. So what's left to do now is that we need to be able to say, first of all, I think that's just a little too high. We don't want we want this to maybe be 40. Nice. That's looking better. Sweet. So we can't read it from the top, which makes sense, Norix. I think I agree with you on that. But we can read it from the side. I think that's fair. And then... Uh-oh. We're always facing up at the moment. What is going on? So, you know, right here, that triggers a sign read, which maybe that's too far, but maybe not. I don't know. Because if we were to turn on the collision detection there, it looks like it'd probably be... I think we should shrink the collision for the sign itself, not for the player. I think the player dialog box collision is fine. I think just the green square, right? The width of the signpost can be afforded to squeeze in just a bit. So if we look at the square, see how it's going past where the sign actually is, which is throwing off some of the collision detection. So let's shrink the sign by 2 on both axis and center it. So we will say it'll have an X and a Y, but we want to shift that X and a Y by 2 in both direction, and also shift the... Let's see, if the X and Y is both... No, we want this to be 1. This is 1, but then the width is -2, and the height is -2. So 2 pixels on either side smaller, but the X and Y gets moved down and to the left 1 to compensate for that width and height. So now the green square should be a little smaller. Yeah, that looks a bit better. And then now it's not as close. Yeah, you have to get a little closer than that previous one. I think that's a good smooth ability, because now we don't quite... Yeah, see, before we were triggering it here, but now you got to be a bit closer. I think that's fair and looks pretty good. I think that's pretty good. Sweet. So we've got the basics of a little signpost reading thing. Oh lordy, what is going on here? I'm stuck. It thinks we have a last input. Yeah, I need to come up with a way to fix this, because this happens every once in a while when I'm spamming and like testing the keys and I press a bunch. It gets left as an input even though I'm not holding any buttons. So it thinks I'm... See that? Oh, and then it just fixed itself. It just fixed itself right there. I saw it because the input list went back to 0, went back to nothing in there, and I don't know how it gets stuck with an input in there. I thought we had fixed that already. But we will add it to the list. Okay. Let's take out our green render, and then we will maybe conceptualize a bit how we're going to get the rest of the stuff working. Now, the tricky thing is we need multiple pages of text, right? Like if it's dangerous to go alone, hit enter, take this, hit enter, and then close the dialog box. We need a table of lines for the signpost to cycle through before, and same to go with our dialogue system, but it's easier for me to wrap my head around the signposts first, because the NPC dialogue is going to be a lot more complicated. Okay, this is a great start though. We've got collision detection for the signposts, and we're able to give us little notes here to render specific text in specific signposts. The only thing we still need to do to make it scalable is to not hard code in the map that we're inserting our signposts into. So we do need to fix that tomorrow. I will say that we will do ensure signposts are inserted into current map dot signposts. So that's easier said than done because of the way our game is structured. But once we have that, then we can put a signpost on any game, any screen of the game. So that'll be good. And then we can worry about getting the pages, right? Like multiple page posts. That's going to be a little tough, but it's okay. So we added a new class of a signpost. And I'm just going to look at our git diff here before I commit. We added a dialog collides. The input table, the input is a table containing down. Wouldn't that return true in diagonal? Well, it's in my game. Your render, the player is being rendered in the direction of the latest held input. So if you hold up and to the right, up and then right, it'll give you the up dx and then the y dx, or the y dx then the x dx, and then it'll set your animation to be the last button you pressed, basically. So it's not that it returns true, it's just that the input list holds a table of string values that are the order of which input you held, and then we're setting the direction based on the last input in that input list. So if you hold 4 things, it'll have the input list will have all of those keys that you held in the order you held them in, and we'll change the animation to the last input you just pressed. So the 2 big things we did was just give us these 2 new tables for our map, and it's signposts and signpost collided. I don't think I like the name of that, but that's okay. Then we gave our player a dialog box X for collision detection with the signpost. We gave ourselves 2 instantiations of a signpost in our map 7.2. And then why? What? Oh, in player update. Okay, yeah. In player update, we update our dialog box positions. And then in our scene, we are rendering only the signpost collided. We gave ourselves a paused option, a new class. And if we hit enter and our player is not facing down and colliding with the signpost, then we'll go ahead and become paused. So that's what we did today. All right, sweet. That's it for tonight. I'm a little sleepy, but I mean, hey, this was 2 hours, so that was a good little session here. We'll raid out. I'll just raid out to a fellow team member, and we'll call it a night. But thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. I'll be here tomorrow. We'll be working on some more stuff. But have a good night, and I'll catch you later.